I need to get a mic that like sits on the camera so I'm not always moving this cord around. All right, so this one is the rule of reciprocity. I wish that this is one that I had learned back when I was like 15. I would have saved myself a ton of heartache if I had known this one, but this is one that typically you learn as you get older. So I'm gonna share this one now for anyone who is, you know, in 15 to 25-ish and they're like, oh, you know, what would an older person tell me? So rule of reciprocity is key in all of your relationships, which is dating relationships, friendships, business relationships. And the rule of reciprocity is what you're giving and what you're receiving in equilibrium. So it's the rule of reciprocity, the equal rule of reciprocity, which means are you giving as much as you're receiving and vice versa? An example would be if you're dating someone and you're always the person who calls them, you're always the person who's commenting on their social media, you're always the person who's driving to them. That's an unequal rule of reciprocity. You're giving, they're receiving. You want to strive in all of your relationships for an equal rule of reciprocity. So in that type of scenario, you would determine like, okay, well, I'm always giving and I'm not really receiving. So I'm going to pull back and see if this person comes forward and starts giving a little. And if not, you probably want to exit that relationship. Same thing with friendships. Like if you have a friend that every time you want to hang out with them, they expect you to be the one to drive to them. They expect you to celebrate all of their wins. And they're constantly like, come to my birthday party, come to my anniversary, come to my kid's birthday party, come to my house, come to me, do for me, do for me. It's all about me. It's probably best to let go of that friend. You can, if you really, really, really appreciate this person as a human being, you can extend an olive branch and be like, hey, you know, I would love to see you. Can you come visit me? And if you do that 2 or 3 times and they still don't, it's an unequal rule of reciprocity and it's probably best to move on. Not because you don't care about that person, not because they don't care about you, but because you're a low priority in their life. And we all only have so much energy to expend. And as a general rule, you have about enough energy for 2 to 3 close friends in your life. And so it's really important to determine who those 2 to 3 close friends are going to be and who you're going to expend that energy on, and everyone else can kind of go to the periphery. So yeah, dating, friends. When it comes to clients with the rule of reciprocity, a lot of freelance artists or entrepreneurs will ask themselves and ask their colleagues like, am I billing the right amount? Am I billing correctly? And you can really just go to the rule of reciprocity. Am I giving as much as I'm receiving? So for example, if you have a client and the amount that they're paying you doesn't allow you to keep up with the newest and latest gear because the amount they're paying you is, then that is an unequal rule of reciprocity, because you can't keep your tools to the level they need to be able to deliver the top product that they're asking for. And so you need to then raise your rates because they're expecting more than what they're giving, right? So, you know, when it comes to freelance work or work in business, it's, are they giving you enough for you to be able to deliver what they expect to receive? And if so, then you have an equal rule of reciprocity. If not, you have an unequal rule of reciprocity, and you can try to adjust to get it towards at an equilibrium. And if you can't get it to an equilibrium, then you should move on from that client. So that is a piece of advice I would give to my younger self, is in every relationship, instead of going through heartache and struggle and strife and I don't know why they're not doing this and I don't know why they're not doing that, or having uncomfortable conversations, which I did when I was younger, and that's why I'm giving this piece of advice. I wish somebody would have given me this piece of advice, is stop and ask yourself, is this an equal rule of reciprocity? Am I receiving as much as I'm giving? If the answer is no, move on. Keep it simple, move on. And also think of it in the reverse. Like, it's not just, am I always doing for this person? Am I not receiving enough? Is there someone in your life who is always stepping up for you and you're not giving to them as much? And then ask yourself why. Are they not that much of a priority to you? Are you okay with them moving on? If you're not okay with them moving on, then you need to step it up because they're giving you more then you are giving them in return. So rule of reciprocity, it'll save a lot of heartache and grief, a ton of heartache and grief, because last scenario, as an example, if you have a friend who all of a sudden is like, they've just moved on, they've quietly moved on, or they're like, it's just not worth it, that means that they're giving you more than they're receiving from you. So that means you're asking a lot of them, but you're not giving in return. So rule of reciprocity, it'll pretty much prevent you from having to have any uncomfortable conversations, because you can just read it right off the bat. It's all about keeping an equal rule of reciprocity in all of your friendships, relationships, and business. Yeah. Okay, so this is a tough one that I'll probably get some haters in the comments about, but it's one of those pieces of advice that I wish I had been told that nobody will tell you, because it's a truth that nobody wants to fully admit to. And that is that if you're single, when you have friends that get married and have kids, you will not be able to be their friend anymore. Or at least the friendship will dissipate to a much smaller role in your life. And the reason why is that your friend, when they get married, they are going to start prioritizing their relationship, and then they're going to start prioritizing their kids, and they're not going to have any time for you, but they're going to expect you to still show up for them. So as an example, if you have a friend who gets engaged, they want you to come to the engagement party, and then they want you to come to the wedding and bring presents, and then they send you pictures of their honeymoon and they want you to celebrate their honeymoon. And then they find out that they're having a baby and they want you to come to the baby shower and bring presents. And then they have the kid's first birthday and they want you to come to the kid's first birthday and bring the kid presents. And then they find out they're pregnant a second time and they want you to come and bring presents for that kid. And then and that continues on. And all of that is fine, but the problem is they have their plates so full and they're so busy prioritizing their marriage and the raising of two human beings, which is totally fair, that they don't have time to do any of that for you. So you might ask them like, hey, let's meet up for coffee on a Saturday. And they're like, oh, I can't because, Emily's got this recital, or, oh, I can't because I have to do this with my husband or my wife. So they literally won't have time for you, but they'll expect you to show up for all of their life events. And it just becomes such an unequal friendship that it runs its course. That's just what happens. And it's not that it's like they stopped caring about you or stopped appreciating you as a friend. It's just you moved really far down on their priority list, but because you're single and they know you have the time, they still want to remain really high on your priority list. They still, and I've had friends who have got married and had kids, and they get really sensitive if I don't rush to celebrate their kid or their marriage, but they have no time for me. And so and it's not that these people are being selfish, it's that they literally have their plates so full that they can't give, but they still want to receive. And that only can last for so long in any relationship. So that's one piece of life advice, is just know that when you get that wedding invitation, unfortunately that friendship, it's more like you're going to a funeral of the friendship. You're saying goodbye to your friend, and it's like, yes, they'll still be in your life, but in a much smaller capacity. I'm sure this is not true for everyone, but I've found this time and time again throughout my life. So, yep, if you're single and your friends get married and have kids, they probably won't be in your life in the same capacity that they once were, and it will be a significant difference. That's it. Marriage and kids. So this one is drugs and alcohol. So if I could give advice to my younger self, it would be that alcohol is nothing more to your system than poison. It's just not worth it. I think a lot of regrets that I have in life are tied directly to times that I was drinking, whether that is saying something that I regretted, waking up in the morning and being like, oh no, I can't believe I said that. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have said that. Or dating a guy that I wish I just would not have dated. or you know, drinking on an empty stomach to where I wake up in the morning and just feel absolutely awful. So yeah, if I could give advice to my younger self, it would be to not drink. Like, I understand trying it, and like, you have to understand what it is, and there's a curious aspect to, like, you have to suffice your curiosity. And I think that creative people especially are some of the most curious people there are. Probably artists and scientists, I think, are like the most curious humans. And so you have to suffice that curiosity. Like, you have to try it out to know what it is, but ultimately there's not a net positive that comes from it. It's typically you just end up like wreaking havoc on your body and end up with a whole bunch of regrets. So if I could give advice to my younger self, it would be like, sure, give yourself a year to experiment and play around, and then after that, like, just get really healthy. You know, it's the old adage, your body is your temple, treat it as such. So yeah, that would be my advice, is like, maybe in college, give yourself a year to have fun, and then after that, like, it's not worth it. Okay. Money and finances. So if I could turn back time, if I could time travel, I would tell my younger self all about finances, how the economy works, how money works, and I would be in a much different position financially than I am now. I am like the average American that went through the public school system, went to the 4-year college, got the 4-year degree, went and got the good job after college, and here I am still working at a job. Not that working at a job is bad, but I mean, let's be real. True wealth is freedom of time. And that is what I would tell my younger self, is to do anything and everything that you possibly can to set yourself up to have freedom. And by freedom, I mean freedom to decide what to do with your own time. And what that means is that you want to, when you're younger, you want to work and generate cash flow, or generate money that's coming in from a job, and then every little bit of extra money that you have, you want to put that into investments. So you want to invest in precious metals, real estate, the stock market, anything other than like shoes and clothes and makeup and cars, which is what I did, which is what most people in their 20s and 30s do. I got totally brainwashed by, you know, everything that you see out there of making women feel like you need to have a certain beauty standard, and so you spend all of your money on that. The keeping up with the Joneses of, you want to have the right car, you want to have the right clothes. I did all of that stuff in my 20s and 30s, and that is one thing I regret, because I would be in a much different position financially if I understood finance. So this goes into the second one, which is college. We're just going to transition into college. If I could turn back time 20 years from now, I would, okay, a little bit more than that, but right around that range, I would study, okay, so I studied photography in college, because back then you couldn't just take a picture on a digital camera. It was still film cameras, so you had to learn how to mix chemicals, you had to learn how to process prints in the darkroom. It was really more of like a craftsmanship back in the day. You couldn't just learn how to be a photographer on YouTube like you can now. That said, I would have studied business. I would say that anyone who wants to be an artist, anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, you want to go to college and get a degree in business, and you want to study finance. Those are the two things, because it doesn't matter how amazing of an artist you are. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you are the most amazing photographer, the most amazing painter, the best dancer in the world. If you don't understand business and you don't understand finance, you will never make it. And I feel like the biggest struggles that I have had in my photography is that I did not get a foundation of understanding how to run a business. So if I could go back 20 years ago, if I could travel back in time, I would have gotten a bachelor's degree in business and I would have studied finance. Yeah. So if you're somebody who's younger that's watching this, I mean, business and finance, it's such a broad degree that will cover you in almost every area if you're wanting to work for yourself in any capacity. So yeah, I could have had my major be in business, my minor be in finance, and all of my elective courses photography, and that would have covered me perfectly. So that's what I would have done.